First, I start with growth. Asia, 8% growth over decades, and LAC, 4%. It has increased, but still less than Asia. Both LAC and South Asia, much to learn from Asian tigers and China, although tigers became cats, as somebody said. So Latin American countries can learn from Asia on the usual kind of things, infrastructure, ease of doing business, education, etc. But there is a lot of heterogeneity in Latin American countries. And of course, Asia also can learn from Latin American countries on high-value agriculture and social protection. And of course, trade and investments, I don't touch much. On poverty and hunger, in spite of high growth, poverty and food insecurity are high in both countries. So what we are interested in on poverty and hunger, we all know that growth, as Ishar mentioned, that growth is a necessary condition but not sufficient for reduction in poverty and hunger. In both continents, we have major problem of inequalities. And therefore, we are interested in shared growth or inclusive growth, which Ishar was talking about. And inequalities are high in LAC than Asia, but poverty is low in LAC as compared to Asia, particularly South Asia. Issues on poverty and hunger, how to make macro policies more pro-poor, how do policies achieve shared or inclusive growth, particularly rural-urban disparities, social and other disparities, and relationship between agriculture and poverty, also rural non-farm sector, and how do we strengthen the smallholder agriculture and also create productive employment, and how do we deal with the food price increase in future. And lastly, what are the social protection measures? Agriculture and poverty, agriculture is twice effective in reducing poverty than non-agriculture. One question is how macro policies affect agriculture. In fact, we have a presentation on linkages between exchange rate and agriculture. In LAC, agriculture share is lower than Asia, particularly compared to South Asia. But more important, as someone said, particularly for 5-6 countries, but also they export primary and agriculture commodities. For example, in Asia, China has agriculture GDP share 11%, but employment is 40%. In India, 17% agriculture GDP, employment is 55%. So that's where the linkage, the livelihoods is important from poverty point of view. Although overall GDP growth is lower in LAC as compared to East, but agriculture growth is equal, as Ashok mentioned yesterday. And the difference between Asia and LAC in agriculture, or Asia is dominated by smallholder agriculture, but LAC has a large-scale commercial sector along with smallholders. So learning from each other in agriculture, Asia can learn on high-value chains, but the challenge in Asia is how to mobilize the smallholders. And LAC can also learn from Asia on policies regarding smallholder agriculture. Next is food price increase and poverty. Poor suffer from shocks like food, fuel, financial, and other shocks. So food price increase can increase poverty and hunger. Particularly, this can have impact on well-being of women and children. The coping mechanisms can have adverse effect on health and education, malnutrition. And food price may remain high in future. Many papers also mentioned that. So strengthening of agriculture is the key for this. So way forward in agriculture, there are four goals: increase in growth of agriculture, sharing growth or equity. For example, in India, spreading to eastern sector and strengthening the smallholder, and sustainable agriculture and rural non-farm sector. So both demand side and supply side are important. The supply side, infrastructure, water management, and technology. Particularly, in India, the BT cotton is a revolution. And also rural non-farm, for that, education is important. In fact, one study showed that to take care of food prices, productivity increase is important than having protection policies. Now I come to the last 2 minutes, on the poverty, social protection. The poverty is high, inequalities are rising, shocks like food prices are rising, social exclusion is taking place. In this context, social protection is very important. And social protection is a broader one for reducing chronic poverty and also capability deprivation, and also to take care of contingencies like old age and others. And also in some countries, the informal sector is very high. For example, 92% in India are in informal sector. They don't have any social security. And also social exclusion is very important. Yesterday, Thorat has mentioned, presented. Affirmative action is important. Social protection has both intrinsic value and instrumental value, as yesterday presented. Asia can learn from LAC on social protection. There's a lot of debate in India whether we should have cash transfers or CCTs similar to LAC. Some say it should be introduced immediately, but some others say we don't have hospitals and schools. How can cash transfers can help? So there's a lot of debate in India about cash transfers now. Another issue is that leakages in social protection. There is a disconnect between policy and implementation. And also in India, the rights-based approach we are following, right to employment, right to food. So how far it is good for other countries. To conclude, growth is important. I mean, nobody will say growth is unimportant, but we are more interested in shared growth, macro pro-poor policies, impact on poverty and hunger, agriculture, particularly smallholder agriculture, food price increase. So many lessons we can learn, LAC learning from Asia, and Asia learning from LAC. But one issue is whether we can straightaway lift from LAC to Asia or Asia to LAC. For example, whether supply chains with different high-value agriculture, whether with the structure of LAC, whether we can have it in Asia. Similarly, social protection, whether we can lift straight away from Asia. So lastly, there should have been more discussion on institutions in both continents in the conference. Thank you very much.